All right, and yeehaw, buckaroos. We're going down to Texas today to talk about Texas's draconian anime ban that seems to be another harbinger of the end of times. Yo, everybody, I'm Buster Green, your host with the most, and you might remember me from the anime Mutant Busters, where I was the green guy. If you haven't seen Mutant Busters, go watch it. Anyway, so this was one of the hardest videos I've had to make in a minute. I had to restart this video like 4 times because I kept getting swept down hard into a well of depression, worrying about the world going into World War III, Elon Musk's heel turn into a drug-addicted wacko, food prices being impossible to deal with, I haven't been able to eat eggs in months, and overall things are pretty bad in the US right now. But let me just stick to what I'm here to talk about today and what's actually going on. So today we're talking about censorship and persecution, which is on the rise in America because every day things are getting worse and worse as America slips into a full fascist decline of shittiness. So in today's news on that decline, a new law has dropped in deep red Texas that at first glance seems to be trying to ban anime, but the more you look at it, the worse it looks. So today I'm going to try to sit down and take a hard look at that law and decide for myself if this law is being blown out of proportion or if it is actually going to straight up ruin your life and maybe everyone's life because its long-term detrimental effects could shape the anime industry and maybe shape your own life. And now I have to wonder how bad is this and if we can do anything about it. By the way, I'm also going to warn you guys, we're probably going to get into some sexy, dirty stuff in this video because this is a hot topic about people's bodies, what people think women should look like, and what should or shouldn't be illegal. There is a very high chance that YouTube might demonetize this video. So if that happens, and if you feel like supporting me, please feel like donating to my Patreon because I'm using the money from Patreon to make the second episode of the Mutant Busters anime, which is my singular goal in life right now and the only thing I'm trying to do before I die. So please send me money because I need to pay the animators that need to help me draw the drawings that make the anime look so good. Okay, so let's all calm down first and take a look at this thing from its genesis to where it's at now, because there's honestly a lot of people on both sides of the aisle warping this thing to suit their own political agendas and narratives, and I'm trying to look at this thing as neutrally as possible to just see how bad it is and forecast its possible effects on the country. So as I'm understanding, this law became public knowledge, I want to say on Sunday, and it started off as a bill. It's still a bill. It has passed unanimously through the Texas Senate, but the bill hasn't become a law yet, and it hasn't been installed into law. So this is technically something that hasn't gone to effect. So if you are in Texas, I do think you should be trying to get out there and put a stop to it. Maybe call your local congressperson because this can change people's lives. So the way the law is written is it's written to criminalize the possession of any material depicting a minor in obscene ways. And that is unfortunately a very vague sentence that has a lot of interpretations. So looking into it more deeply, it's Senate Bill 20 of the Texas Senate. It's intended to be a rollout to the amendment of Chapter 43 of Texas Penal Code. And the exact wording of the law is as follows, that if a person commits an offense, if a person knowingly possesses, accesses with intent to view, or promotes obscene visual material containing a depiction that appears to be of a child younger than 18 of age, engaging in activities described by Section 43.21A1B, regardless of whether the depiction is an image of an actual child, a cartoon, or an animation, or an image created using artificial intelligence application of computer software. That said, the activities described by Section 43.21A1B are up to design and interpretation, though they describe the standard acts that would be considered deplorable by most. The definition of obscene material ends with this line: material of a performance taken as a whole that lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Okay. So the big problem with this law is that the law's overall goal is just to ban obscene things, and there's no real definition for what obscenity is there. Now, obscene things are unfortunately also constantly changing in the cultural zeitgeist. Like, for example, 40 years ago, Lenny Bruce used to be beaten and arrested all the time for saying the F word in bars, and now I fucking say that every day. So, good thing I don't live in the 60s, because YouTube in the 60s was apparently a bad place to live. Now, there are numerous complication levels to this onion, so let's start peeling back the layers of the onion. Level 1. Does this law ban AI? So yeah, as I read into this, the law's original intention, and from what I'm getting from reading through this, is that Texas lawmakers originally designed this law to combat against generative AI. Now, I actually am against generative AI, and when you make this argument that it's an anti-AI law, I'm actually full for it. Because let's face it, the average AI content creation library is pretty much full of pictures of strange children that were uploaded to stock photo websites, and then on top of that, it's also loaded up with every piece of porn that's ever existed in the history of the internet. As far as I know, you can make some pretty horrible shit with AI by just combining these two things together. And I don't know about you guys, but I've seen some really cringe videos on my Facebook of random people transforming into AI-generated pregnant anime women. I don't know what that's about, but that actually disturbed me a lot. Now, because AI is usually trained on porn, the AI is almost intentionally and defaultly leading into creating porn, even if you tell it not to, which is really, really gross. The fact the AI is trained on porn is also why most AI models have difficult times depicting people who are like ugly outside the typical spectrum of human beauty, because there's not a million pictures of ugly people. There's a million pictures of desperate people on OnlyFans, and these are the ones that are being fed into the AI machine. Unfortunately, I don't think you can just pass a law like this, because that changes nothing about the locked-in behavior of these existing AI models, which are all trained on porn. But the vagueness of the law opens it up where maybe if this law was passed, you could use it to criminalize AI. But if I'm being real, I know how the law works, and honestly, it would probably just be used to criminalize AI in the hands of poor people who can't be trusted to handle the infinite power of AI. Because, poor people are just going to use it to make porn of Goku or some shit. So you can say that sucks for AI bros, but AI was always designed to be a tool for the rich to steal labor from the poor, and now that part of AI could be written into law with the way this law is so vaguely laid out. Now, I should probably mention at this time that I don't think this law will actually be used to outright criminalize AI or anime, but I can see the law being used to attach felonies to people who are already caught doing crimes. So, I don't think you'd be arrested for buying an old DVD of Dragon Ball from a thrift store, but I think in this instance, if you had an AI generator or you had some anime hentai, that could be felonized and you could get possession charges in it. The same way if you're arrested for speeding and they catch you with a bag of drugs, you get that possession charge added on. So that's kind of what I think they're intending to use this for. I think they're using this to add bullshit charges to people they're already arresting for other reasons. But they also could completely come down on this and persecute people over this. So let's move on to level 2 of this law. Does the law ban porn? So yeah, the extreme vagueness here is what I keep coming back to, because there's some extreme misuse cases you can get into when you really consider the vagueness of it. Because all this law is actually against is obscene material. And the way the law is phrased exactly says that any material where a person looks like they're under the age of 18 would be obscene in this situation and banned. So actually that opens up a ton of possibilities, because artistically you can argue that literally any anime woman, no matter how old she is, looks like a child to you. And while it obviously blows out of the water most hentai and other pornographic content, the reach here is massive, and it could even blow G-rated girl dating shows out of the water, because just almost all anime stars teenagers, and there's a massive vagueness here about where actually the line is. And there's also this argument that it could just be used to ban porn in general because of that vagueness, that you don't actually know how old women are when you watch a porno. Because this law says that it's obscene for anything to feature young-looking people, you could say that that would allow it to persecute almost all types of porn, except for ones featuring obvious senior citizens, which is something that a lot of Republicans have been pushing for, and likewise certain websites have also been contemplating cutting off access to porn in the US as punishment for Trump's tariff war. So moving on to level 3, does this law actually ban anime? So yeah, it seems like it does. Once again, it's really complicated here because it seems to cover any sort of sexual innuendo, and there's a wide spectrum of anime that sometimes deal with sexual innuendo in a funny and comedic way. There's also some anime where just the protagonist will straight up sit naked in a bathtub or just be shown naked for a second in an artistic sense. Various Gundam shows sometimes show their teen protagonist naked, although I would argue that Gundam never does it in an explicitly obscene way. But then again, I guess all the sex scenes in Gundam Seed would count because Flay was manipulating Kira sexually. Many people are also pointing to Kill la Kill, where the joke is that the girl is wearing an outfit that many people would consider obscene, but I otherwise feel like aside from the outfit, there really wasn't anything that super bad in the series, but maybe I'm forgetting it. I haven't seen it since it came out. There's also the early parts in Dragon Ball where Goku gets naked all the time, and there was also that one time where he shoved a pole up that guy's blah. So yeah, Rip Toriyama, you were the GOAT. Anyway, then there are also people joking that, how about Naruto? Naruto is complicated because all throughout Naruto, he's using the sexy no jutsu. Now, does the sexy no jutsu count because that's actually an illusion? But does that count because Naruto is technically a 12-year-old boy using this illusion of a naked woman? Even though he's not an actual naked woman, he's projecting the image of a full-grown woman. You could also make this whole narrative that Naruto would be banned because he's technically a child soldier fighting in a war, and that itself is obscene. The other problem is that this ban is applied to anything that looks like it sexualizes minors, even if it actually doesn't, or if the women just look too much like minors, which makes it very similar to this Australian law I'll talk about at the end of the video. Which makes me wonder if it would apply to, say, Yotsuba, a hilarious little series that's not obscene at all, but it's just about a little girl doing her like daily routine, and there's nothing sexual, nothing creepy about it. It's just a show where the main character is a 5-year-old girl. Although now that I think about it, Shin-chan would definitely be banned because Shin-chan is super obscene. But does anyone still care about Shin-chan? But I then want to say that the way the law is stated, it seems like it's mainly targeted at characters like Frieren, who, Frieren, she looks like she's 15, but she's actually like a 500-year-old lady who otherwise has the personality of your hipster grandmother. I feel like this is also more specifically targeted at those elder Lolita category characters like, say, Tiki from Fire Emblem, who is a 900-year-old fire dragon stuck in the body of a prepubescent 10-year-old girl, or like Clan from Macross Frontier, who is an alien warrior woman who is supposed to be in her 20s, but she can sometimes turn back into a child because of a little wacky sci-fi technology malfunction. And I do also personally have some issues with this trope because I think this trope is dumb. But as much as I think this trope is dumb, it has actually happened in real life. There are actually a variety of adults who have hormone and growth issues and who stay small their entire lives. So then would pictures of them be banned? Like there was a whole reality TV show about that one lady. Is that banned? And then, yeah, now I'm remembering like Monster Girl from Invincible. Would they ban Invincible over Monster Girl? Like the way the law is written, you can definitely make an argument for basically anything over it. So then the next level, would it ban video games? And yeah, there's a massive complication here about how much content would cross this line. Like everyone's pointing to Persona 5 as probably like the most blatant example, because in the original game, Joker fucks. He's basically allowed to fuck with every girl in the game. That's like one of the most amusing things about Persona 5. He can even fuck his technical sister and his literal teacher and several middle-aged women around town, which is very obscene but very hilarious in the way it plays out in the game. Now, none of this is ever shown out explicitly on screen, but the implication that Joker fucks and these ladies are like down for it is meticulously laid out very carefully and like hilariously. So that would definitely count as obscene in my book, I believe. But then again, you never actually see him like do the deed. So yeah, does that count as obscene? What do you think? Leave a comment. Now, there were also some people joking sarcastically that because Joker fucks, like, would that therefore count to like other appearances of Joker in other media? Would he then be banned in Smash Brothers? Or worse than that, would Smash itself be banned entirely for featuring him? And also, I guess Bayonetta is okay because don't forget, she's an adult. But yeah, so... And honestly, Persona is just the tip of the iceberg. I can think of like dozens of games throughout history that have involved teenagers in lewd scenarios. This would basically wipe out the entire dating game genre. I could also see this ban creating some kind of a lashback censorship effect, where like, for example, in old games, they used to change the appearance of protagonists to make them look more American, and in some cases just make them look buffer and more stupid. That brings us to level 5. Then doesn't this ban just sort of ban literally everything? So yeah, there's constantly moving standards and goals that could make this law like basically the gateway to a full fascist state of oppression and censorship, as LGBT rights keep getting degraded in this country and like book bans keep becoming more and more of a thing. It's not hard to imagine the very quality of like being gay could be considered obscene, and then you could just wholesale ban literally any media featuring any gay characters ever. That would all qualify. And this law could also be a gateway to a Holocaust situation where large numbers of weebs and gay people could be rounded up and sent to a gas chamber or a torture camp. The vagueness of it does keep getting worse and worse the more I read into it, because it's technically not just any anime, it's literally any fictional depictions of minors in any obscene circumstances. So like, does anyone remember that shitty Seth Rogen movie called Good Boys where a bunch of fifth graders did crimes? That would count as obscene shit, I believe. So that movie's outlawed and Seth Rogen's going to jail. Or what about South Park? We know South Park is made by like two old dudes, but literally every South Park episode is like children doing obscene shit. So that seems like it would be absolutely square in the headlights of this law. And yeah, honestly, like, I know this law is just in Texas right now, but the vagueness at play here makes it an absolute nightmare for free speech and free self-expression. And there are many people on Twitter pointing out, because this law is so vague, it could be applied to anything. You could ban Rick and Morty because Morty is a minor in danger. You could ban Steven Universe because he has all those mental problems. You could ban the Twilight series, which is explicitly about teenagers having sex with monsters. Or you could ban The Walking Dead because there's a lot of obscene shit in that series. And the main character, Carl, was supposed to be a 12-year-old, even though I think his actor was like pushing into his 30s by the time they killed him off on the show. Like, because there is no legal definition of obscenity, you could literally basically like apply this law to literally any form of media unless all the characters are like over 30. This law also might have crippling effects on the entertainment industry as a whole, because like Funimation was like built in Texas, and even though they've been technically absorbed into Crunchyroll, they've rebranded as Crunchyroll Dallas, and they still have a massive anime empire set in Texas. All their old offices are still there, and seemingly depending on how bad the reach on this rule is, they might have to technically move their operations to a different state. So this law could effectively shut them down or force them to move, which just hurts the economy in Texas. Like, there would be no reason for them to stay there when they've been kneecapped and they can't make products that would otherwise be legal in the other 49 states of the US. All right, so now let's take a step back and look at how people are reacting to this. So everything I've said up to now is just my personal opinion on how this law could be interpreted. But I think overall this law is a really bad thing because it's just too vague, and it can be literally used to hurt almost anyone if you apply it carelessly. But looking into the online reaction to this law, there's been a pretty wide spectrum of people all over the political landscape with various different stakes in the industry and various different personal feelings who are all twitching and going nuts over this thing. So we have a lot of people on like both sides of the aisle taking shots at this law, people who are both for and against it on both sides of the aisle. I did see a lot of far racist people initially thrilled that the law would just allow for the mass jailing of people who collect porn, anime fans, and LGBT people. And then there was the argument that, like, you know, if someone is a big lolicon, if someone is a big pervert, they probably deserve to be arrested. While I can see the argument on that, if someone is like a loud and proud sexual deviant, should they really be arrested when they've done actually nothing wrong? Should they be arrested for dreaming about fake women? Like, no one was hurt there, so what's the real crime? But then that goes back to the argument that the law is just going to be used to blanket arrest anyone who's a weirdo, anyone who's different in society, anyone you don't like. You can probably just point a finger at them and say they're bad. There's also some schadenfreude going on through the heads of various Republican anime fans who were very pro-Trump, very pro-Musk, very fuck everything until this came down right on top of the house where they live. And speaking of Musk, Musk lives in Texas, and he has openly bragged about watching anime hentai with Grimes when they were together, and he loves watching romantic anime all the time, so I guess you'd have to lock him up too, because he's definitely as guilty as any of the rest of us. Now, there were definitely a lot of people who live in Texas being, well, like, well, I collect anime, but surely they won't arrest me, right? Surely I'm a good person. I pay my taxes. Why would the Republican Party ever hurt me? But yeah, you have no way to know like what they're going to do. Like, there's also some people saying that the law would just be used to villainize like outright nudity and outright art in general. You could literally apply this law to anything: The Simpsons, Family Guy, a majority of classic films, a majority of Renaissance art. Literally anything that shows any person naked like would be like up for grabs under this. But I feel like if you guys really, really want a more in-depth crash course on this topic, you should probably check out the anime Shimoneta, which is literally about this. It's been a controversial topic that's been proposed in the past, and they've always like shut it down in Japan. But Shimoneta is this R-rated, very hilarious show that posits that if you did go ahead and ban all obscene material, the problem there is that obscene material, no matter how perverted it is the material that gets people eventually familiar and comfortable with their own sexuality and their own concepts of romance. And if you take that all away, you're going to end up with a generation of even more mentally fucked up, even more repressed children who won't know how to talk to each other or breed in 20 years, which is just going to further fuck up the birth rate problem, which is something that the Japanese government seems to sort of care about sometimes. Essentially, Shimoneta argues that if perversion is outright outlawed, you will actually just increase people's overall levels of perversion, because then people will become even more attracted to the illegal things that are considered sexual. The argument is that the more you make these things illegal, the more people ultimately end up craving them, and it's just like alcohol prohibition except applied to porn. I would, though, say ultimately that the only silver lining here is that the ban right now is limited just to Texas, but supposedly that's just the law affecting Texas first. I want to say that in a worst case scenario, the law could eventually potentially spread beyond Texas to a majority of the Southern and Bible Belt states. In an absolute worst case scenario, I think Trump could theoretically implement this on a national scale someday. But I do think if he tried, California and New York would probably be the most hard opposed to this because of their strong entertainment industry infrastructure. So I do think this is likely only going to affect Texas unless we end up in a full Handmaid's Tale dystopia in America where all bets are off and everyone's fucked. So lastly, I want to end this off by going on a tangent, because here's the last level. Once upon a time, Australia banned certain kinds of women. Now, yeah, this law is scary and new, but shit like this has unfortunately gone down already at other places and other times in the world before. So I want to talk about this similar but different censorship law that passed in Australia 15 years ago by the Australian Sex Party, which, despite having a super fun name, is not a super fun group of people. Now, the Australian Sex Party did not ban anime or manga. They instead banned, get this, women with small tits, the itty bitty titty ban, as it was known at the time. Now, it was a pretty fucked up law, and the way the law was written was that even if a woman was 20 or 30 years old and she took a selfie exposing herself for her boyfriend, if she has A cups, she's committing a felony, but if she has B cups, it's completely fine. Now, the logic behind this ruling is that even if a woman has small breasts and you take a picture of her, there's no legal way to prove she is not a child or was not a child at the time the picture was taken. Now, what's weird, though, is as I'm researching this again today, I remember this was a huge argument and a super hot topic in 2010, and I'm super weirded out looking at it again now, because I feel like after it came into law, people just took the L and it was really never discussed again after that. Aside from a minor research report looking into it in 2013, wondering if it did actually change anything. Although there is this one argument here on the flip side that argues that it did change something, because there were so many people who argued at the time that outlawing flat-chested women was also basically a ban on thin women as well, and the theory, while hard to directly prove, does seem to overall come to pass, with the average weight of an Australian woman in 2010 climbing almost a whole 10 kilograms, from 64 kilograms in 2010 to 73 kilograms in 2025. And everyone in America who doesn't know what a kilogram is, some common 10 kilogram objects are bowling balls, a bag of food, a paint can, a pumpkin. So yes, this is actually a very dramatic increase in the average size of a woman. The average size of a woman in Australia went up 3 sizes from 2010 when the law was passed to where it is now in 2025. So when A cups were outlawed, only outlaws had A cups. Now, there's plenty of other reasons and excuses you could point to that could have caused that, but the dramatic size increase being caused by a freaky law that banned flat-chested women is, to me, some pretty mind-blowing Twilight Zone level shit. There's a real argument to be made here that this law caused all the women in Australia to get fatter and heavier as a sort of natural defense mechanism against how stupid it was. So yeah, overall, it's fucked here that laws like this, when put into effect, can overall change people on ways that you can't even predict. And I think even if I wasn't an anime fan, I think laws like this are completely fucked because they're mostly just used to persecute people and change their lives and behaviors. So that's pretty much everything I have to say about this. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you live in Texas. If you live in Texas, are you scared? Are you going to take action against this? This hasn't become a law yet. So if you want to stop this, this is your time to stop this. Otherwise, I feel like the overall quality of life is just going to go bad for people in Texas. And if it does come into effect, it could spread to the other states as well, which concerns me. All right, I'm Buster Green. Let me know what you guys think about all this. Yikes. All right, good night.